the More Than Numbers podcast.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of the More Than Numbers podcast. We've been getting a lot of questions from clients around the changes that are coming with FRS 102 for periods commencing the 1st of January 2026. And one of those key questions is around leases and the changes that have come about, particularly in relation to operating leases. So we thought it'd be really useful to get together and talk through those changes and how they impact people. So I'm joined today by Fran Clapham, who is head of our audit team here and also our technical partner. So who better than her to talk us through all of these changes? So Fran, can you just perhaps outline how it currently stands?
Yes, so at the moment there are two types of leases, operating leases and finance leases. Finance leases are already on balance sheet. Operating leases are expensed through the P&L. So that's where we currently stand.
And how does that impact from a tax point of view?
Tax point of view, finance leases, where they're on balance sheet, will attract capital allowances, whereas operating leases, the expense of the rent that you process through your profit and loss account is allowable for corporation tax.
So what are the new rules? How do they differ? Because it is quite a big change for a lot of businesses.
It's a massive change. So the key change is that now operating leases will be brought on balance sheet, most of them. There's always a but.
There's always a but, isn't there? So what are those exceptions?
So the exceptions are short-term leases, leases of less than 12 months, but I think it's important to point out that that's at inception, not when you take on the transitional arrangements. So if you've got a 3-year lease that as of the 1st of January you've only got a year remaining, that is not a short-term lease. And also low value. Again, there isn't a definitive list, but what we're saying is anything that's probably less than £5,000 in total, printers, mobile phones, things like that, they can still be classed in the old way. They don't have to be put on balance sheet.
So in terms of putting them on balance sheet, what's that going to look like for businesses?
So there's two elements. There'll be what's called a right of use asset and a corresponding lease liability. So you will work out the present value of, going back to our studies, the present value calculations, the present value of the future lease payments, and that will be your asset position and your liability position.
And then each year, how does that work?
So each year we will then depreciate that asset, and you will also calculate an element of interest. So the depreciation and the interest will hit your P&L instead of the rent
charge
that you would have posted, yes.
Now I think from one of the tax changes, this is something that's completely different to things that we've always been taught about depreciation being a non-allowable expense. All of a sudden it's going to be allowable, but just for these right of use assets.
Yeah, that's right. So you will be allowed, as you quite rightly say, the depreciation element and the interest element. So what you need to consider is that will be quite forward fronted in the first few years, so you will have a higher write-off in the first couple of years than you would have done had you just posted the rental expense, and then that will tail off over the length of the lease.
Right, okay, so lots of things to consider.
Yeah.
In terms of calculating that right of use asset, what are the things that businesses need to consider?
Okay, so you need to think about the lease term. You need to think about the renewal options, break clauses, things like that, but you also need to think about a discount rate. Now, that can be the rate that's intrinsic to the lease, if you've got that information, or it can be the borrowing rate that you could obtain from a bank, say. So that will take, particularly for our audit clients, that might take some judgments and estimates that we'd need to consider.
Mm-hmm. So what should clients really be doing now?
Okay, now they should be look at all your leases. Look at anything that you've got at the moment that is an operating lease. The more that you have, you may need to think about different processes and different systems to put in place. We've got a spreadsheet that we're using to try and help clients prepare for that. But definitely the key thing to do is look at the leases that you've currently got in place.
Because I think one thing just to point out is that right of use asset is from these new rules. So from 1st of January 2026 or whatever the year that they're in, not necessarily if you've got a lease that's already had 5 years worth of
that's
points.
Right. Yeah, so it's at the 1st of January, say you've got a December 26 year end, and you've got a lease that's 3 years in, but it's a 5-year lease, you bring in the 2 years.
Yeah, that's exactly. Right. So lots of things for people to consider.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you want to touch on that people might find useful?
No, I think we've covered the lot. I think it's just a massive change to the way that your accounts will look. Probably important to consider that some of you need to look at audit thresholds, because you are actually increasing the value of your balance sheet. You may then tip over into the gross asset position where you would need an audit. Obviously, you've then got to consider your turnover and your employees. But it will be a huge change for most clients.
So the thing is, start thinking about it now. Start getting that lease register together. And then do speak to us if you need any further assistance. We're here to help.
The More Than Numbers podcast.